I'm David Tepera of the Dekeday Foundation. We thank you for joining us today for our feature of the week, the National Weather Service. We're hoping to give you a better understanding of how this facility functions and learn more about adverse weather conditions. With us here today is meteorologist Lance Wood. Lance, how are you?
Hey David, good.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and help our residents educate more about our weather conditions. But tell us, what is your actual role?
Well, I'm a meteorologist here with the National Weather Service, and I'm actually involved in science and training primarily, as well as kind of how operations are going in general.
Okay.
And within that, I would say, we have a lot of forecasters here that forecast the weather and also issue warnings. I try to make sure that their training plan is adequate. We're using the latest science in our methods for forecasting and warning, and I also do some coordination with area universities like Texas A&M to try to get some of the latest things that they're doing, into the operational world of weather.
Oh, interesting. Well, and also what's interesting is, just so happens as we're conducting this interview, Hurricane Isaac just migrated over Louisiana.
That's correct.
So obviously we're in hurricane season. So how long is hurricane season?
Well, that's a good question. It begins officially on June 1st and it lasts till November 30th. Now, you can get a couple of systems sometimes just outside your season, and this year we actually had a couple in May. But about 95% is going to occur between June 1st and November 30th.
Okay, so we actually have 6 months out of the year that we have these hurricane possible conditions.
That's correct.
And personally, my parents live on the coast, and my father drives my mother crazy about during hurricane season trying to be prepared. Well, Hurricane Isaac was labeled as a Category 1. And help us understand what the categories of hurricanes are.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and sometimes it actually can cause confusion. We actually changed the scale a little bit as far as what we're referring to. The Saffir-Simpson intensity scale used to kind of have surge tied to the categories. Now we call it the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Intensity Scale. So the rating system that we use from 1 to 5 is really only ranking the strength of the hurricane by the wind speed. Now, as you know, hurricanes bring a lot more than wind. We get storm surge, we can get tornadoes, we can get heavy inland flooding. So the scale is good for knowing your wind threat, but to try to tie the wind threat to something else can be kind of dangerous and confusing.
Okay, because even like Louisiana being, okay, so Isaac was categorized as a Category 1.
That's correct.
So based on what type of wind speed for Category 1?
Yeah, that's generally 74 miles per hour up to about 95. And Isaac kind of felt right in the middle of that. So it was a legitimate Category 1, but the problem is that Isaac was really not, its wind field was not clustered near the center. It was spread out, kind of like Hurricane Ike. So, Hurricane Ike, which obviously hit us in 2008, was a Category 2 by the wind intensity, but the surge was tremendous. Well, for a Category 1 hurricane, Isaac produced a very large surge, and I think surprised some people.
Okay, so when you say surge, what all is involved with the surge?
The surge is basically the wind offshore pushing water onshore. So it is the abrupt rise of water at the coastline and inland. If it's high enough, it'll propagate far inland. So it's driven by the wind. So the fact that if it has a large wind field, that's more area over the ocean where the wind is pushing the water onshore. So the more spread out your winds are, the bigger surge you're going to get.
Now, you just mentioned that there's 5 categories, and we've experienced a Category 2. Has there ever even been a Category 5?
Not officially making landfall on the Texas coast, but Andrew in 1992 made landfall in South Florida as a Category 5. And yeah, that is unbelievable amount of wind speed. You're talking about winds of greater than 150 miles per hour.
Wow.
So,
and even though these are categorized by the wind speed, but you still get wind gusts that are much stronger than
right, that's correct. You can actually have wind gusts that are higher than the sustained wind speed that we're advertising as a strength. And that's part of why, we have Ike coming on shore, and some of the wind gusts were pretty high, causing roof damage and things like that.
Well, let's get into it. Obviously, people can see there's a lot of cool stuff back here. And so kind of explain what this facility is all about.
Well, the National Weather Service is part of the federal government. We're one of several Weather Service forecast offices just around Texas.
Okay, well then explain to us. I mean, you have these areas that you covered. You're obviously monitoring all this. So how is that all functioning? Because you are able to let us have some kind of a warning to prepare.
Well, we have workstations that we use to look at radar data, satellite imagery, surface observations to monitor the weather. And we would use that to make decisions. We also get computer model data to make a forecast. So one of the things that surprises people about our job is that they think that the weather forecast is, okay, what is the temperature going to be tomorrow? What's the chance of rain? But we actually do a lot more than that, because we do fire weather forecasting, both for controlled burns and wildfires. We do the aviation forecast for many airports in this area. We do marine forecasts. We do the wave height forecast for the coastal waters of southeast Texas. So we will always have two forecasters on duty at the same time, and we sort of divide up the workload. Now, we also issue the severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings for those 23 counties I talked about. So if we were to have a very active weather day with severe weather threat, we'd even have more meteorologists using all of our workstations here in our operations area. So I kind of equate our job sometimes to kind of like a fireman. If everything's quiet in the weather, it's quiet in here. If you have a lot of weather, it gets pretty crazy, and we get a lot of people helping, and we're issuing a lot of different products, warnings, advisories, etc.
Okay, so what does it take for you to be alarmed and it's really kind of watching the buildup of a storm?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it is kind of a process. So you'll go into the day, like say we're going to expect severe thunderstorms in the afternoon. We'd be watching that for several days, kind of leading up to the event, maybe putting out outlooks about, okay, it looks like this day we're going to be having thunderstorms. We issue a hazardous weather outlook that goes to all of our partners. So even emergency management is going to monitor the situation ahead of time. As you get closer to the event, you might have a watch issued, like a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch, within say the 1 or 2 hour to 6 hour time frame. And then once they start to develop, like you were talking about, that's when we go into really monitoring our satellite data, our radar data. And when I say radar data, there's whole courses in learning how to interpret a radar, because you're not just looking at the things that you're familiar with, like the strength of the rain, but how the air is moving in the thunderstorm we can monitor. So we have to try to figure out if there's hail in the thunderstorm and how large it might be, and there's different things we look at for that as well. So you often need several eyes on the radar looking at different things to really see what's going on in the thunderstorm.
Okay, so let's say we do have a hurricane that's going through the Caribbean. And what part does this facility take in order to warn others, or where do you relay your message to?
It's a really good question, because our role versus like a national center like the National Hurricane Center is kind of different, but we do work with the National Hurricane Center. The National Hurricane Center issues the track and the intensity forecast for all the tropical cyclones in the Atlantic Basin. We actually have a special hotline that we get on and coordinate with them if one is threatening us. So once we deem a tropical cyclone a threat locally, we write statements, produce briefings, and provide the local details of what's going to happen here in southeast Texas. How high are the tides going to get, that storm surge that we talked about already. Exactly what kind of winds are we expecting and when. Timing is critical for decisions to be made.
Right.
And then tornadoes. Is this particular hurricane look like one that might be able to produce a lot of tornadoes? So we go into that mode of, okay, what's going to happen here, and then supporting the evacuation decisions that would be made by elected official and emergency management.
Okay, gotcha. Wow, that's a whole lot that goes into that. Okay, Lance, this is all fascinating information to know. Well, help explain and describe some of these monitors that you were just talking about.
Sure. Okay, this is a regional radar view of what is now Tropical Depression Isaac, which is moving slowly to the north-northeast through Arkansas. And this is the same view over on this second screen of infrared satellite imagery, also showing you Tropical Depression Isaac moving from Louisiana into Arkansas from a satellite perspective. And then we can also look a little further out in time by looking at one of our computer models, and what you're seeing is a loop of the next couple of days of where Isaac may go, basically from Louisiana into Arkansas, Missouri, and then finally into Illinois. This is the tropical weather page off our website that shows you all the active tropical systems out there right now. Tropical Storm Leslie, Hurricane Kirk, and Tropical Depression Isaac.
Well, Lance, all this you've shared with us has been very, informative for us. Has the National Weather Service itself, tried to help educate our community?
Yeah, we have a big outreach program. In fact, we have a person called the Warning Coordination Meteorologist, so that's his primary job. So we are always out there coordinating with our emergency management officials, but also with the media. We also go to schools and talk to them. We have a whole program in training observers for severe weather called Skywarn. And then we also have a Storm Ready program where communities can actually do several things to become what we deem storm ready.
Oh, okay, well good. That's good that you guys are out there in our community. Well, there's also lots of viewers who are watching this, and they're going to want to learn more about our weather. And so where's actually is this located and your website?
Yeah, we're off of FM 646, just a little bit east of I-45, here on the Dickinson-League City line. Our website is www.weather.gov and then /Houston.
Okay. And it's actually a very cool website. I've been to it. It's got live action of what our weather conditions are, and it has the hurricanes that Lance was describing for us on there as well. Well, before we let you go, just if you can give our viewers just some kind of a weather caution statement, common sense.
Well, being that this is kind of the transition from summer to fall, but it's still warm out there. A lot of people are doing activities, whether or not it's with your school or just with a team in general. I always worry about lightning safety around here because lightning is a big killer out there. So I like to talk about what's called the 30-30 rule, which is if you see a flash of lightning and then you count how many seconds before you hear thunder, if it's within 30 seconds, you should go inside. In other words, that flash was close enough that it's a threat. And then the other part of the 30-30 rule is basically keeping you from going back out too soon. So wait 30 minutes from the last time you've seen lightning or hear thunder to resume your outdoor activity.
Okay, and that's good common sense information to know. Well, League City residents and our local viewers as well, obviously it's very important for us to have such a qualified National Weather Service local for us. So as always, be responsible, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, David.